You're looking for the secret sauce. You're program hopping because you think you're missing something, and you're not missing anything. I promise you.
That could be the underlying reason why people program hop. Like if we were to
Yeah.
assess behavior of someone and what's the reason someone is scrolling on Instagram looking for the answer, it's because they believe they're missing the secret sauce.
Yes, they
Yeah.
think that this next supplement is going to get them there. I mean, it literally just jumps from one thing to the next because people think this is the thing I'm missing.
Welcome back to the Rooted in Resilience podcast. Today, we are walking through the most common things we see for why people fail in fat loss. And Sarah and I are joined by Kathleen and Tyler. So together we make Team Transform, which we have a new Insta. So if you haven't followed us on Insta, Sarah, what's the Instagram handle?
Team__transform.
All right, hit us up on the
Two
Insta.
underscores.
Sharing very valuable information on improving metabolism, what macros should be, reverse dieting, fat loss. Kathleen runs a weekly Q&A, like definitely get to that Insta, providing a lot of valuable information there. But today we're going to go through things that we have seen now after a full year of Transform, helping over 300 people successfully improve metabolism, lose fat, keep it off, and some of the consistent trends that we see for why people don't necessarily succeed in their fat loss phase from Transform, but also years of experience working with people through this. So I'm going to hand the baton to Kathleen, and she's going to kick us off with the first thing that we see most commonly that can hold people back from actually achieving their fat loss goals.
Yeah, so the first big one that I would say that we see is people trying too many protocols at once. And this is from the more biochemical side, but also the movement side. So this goes into program hopping, but it also goes into protocol hopping. Parasites, protocols, liver cleanses, all of these different things. Basically, my experience with this is that I've worked with people before that, unbeknownst to me until like later on working with them, that they were working with multiple people at once. And so like one day they would do basically what we discussed, the next day they would do what they discussed with someone else, and then the next day they would do it, or like even meal to meal, or so that they would change things based off of what meal they were on. So there was no consistency ever with anything really. And so because there's no consistency, it's very hard to fine tune things, because really what I think most coaches do is that you kind of have a general template that you have seen work for many people. And then from there, as you get to know the person, as you get to work with them longer, this is why it can be really helpful to stay with a coach for a long period of time, because they're getting to know you and slightly making, refinements over time and stuff. But you never get to that point because someone is never consistent enough with doing the things in order to get to the point of refinement. And then the same thing with program hopping on the lifting side. We're all for, if you see a cool new exercise that someone puts up on the gram or, wherever else, to like try that. But like, that should be kind of like that 5 to 10% of your programming, where the vast majority, that like 90% of your programming should be the kind of consistent things that you're seeing, that you're able to progressively overload over time. Because there's so many cool exercises and movements that it's like, yeah, of course, try that, have fun with that. But like, there's no real ability to progressively overload that. And so your ability to put on muscle, if that's your goal, right? Your ability to put on muscle, get better at it, etc. Like it doesn't, it's just not there because there's not a long runway for it. And so, yeah, I would say to kick us off, that's like the first thing. Do you all have anything to add to what I said?
Body needs consistency to produce like any sort of measurable change. And I see this a lot with like friends, family. They see one new hack online and it's really hard given the social media landscape. Like, we're not saying that it's easy to stay focused, but I've mentioned this before. Like, most of you guys need horse blinders. And I know that many of you in the audience are guilty of this, hopping from one trend hack to the next. But in order to actually move forward with results, like, you need to stay consistent for a period of time. And people, just the reality is people aren't doing that.
I think if we were to make these discussion topics into things that can help somebody, one of the most impactful things somebody could do is to silence their social media or curate their feed to who is supporting their goal and not have all these different opinions. So every time you get on Instagram, you're kind of swayed in a new direction. So if you have a coach, you should allow yourself to look at their Instagram and maybe a related Instagram, but I wouldn't be looking at a bunch of different coaches' opinions. And that's going to day to day make you doubt your programming and doubt the plan that you're on. So, if we were to make this into a tip, it would be to curate your social media feed to be supportive of what you're doing right now as opposed to contrasting.
Well, social media is now interest media. And so if you are invested in a program, transform, some sort of program, working with a coach, stick with that and instead search things that make you happy in life. Like, I don't know, chickens, ducks,
No,
bunny rabbit.
that's so true. It works like almost right away. So I'm like looking into dyeing my hair and I looked up a hair color and now my feed is like only hair accounts. And I'm like, what just happened? But it's fine because I don't love seeing things that distract me from my goal. So it's good to have other interests and other hobbies in tandem with your fitness goal because then you're not just obsessing on your fitness goal and trying to change it and tweak it and optimize it every day. You're trusting the process instead, which will get you there. Like Kathleen's talking about consistency over every new flashy thing.
Yeah, and like
I just have one more thing to add here is I think it's important in terms of turning this into a tip is like understanding and respecting that change takes time and you have to have the patience for something to actually like move the needle forward. And if you make changes in that time, you're not going to see the progress. And so it's not going to take a day. It's not going to take a week. It's going to take consistency over weeks or months. And if you keep changing things, you're just going to keep spinning your wheels and you're actually never going to make progress. And so my tip from this would be like have the patience that it's going to take a long period of time and stick to one thing.
Yeah, my practical takeaway for that would be I like to work with people for 6 months, and so I like to give someone 6 months, and, of course, if something is objectively not working for you, then, of course, you need to communicate that with your coach, and you all need to, work through that and or whoever you're working with, whoever's advice you're taking, etcetera. You need to work through that together and, again, make the small refinements needed in order for it to start working for you again. Not just, like, basically rage quitting or just completely jumping to something else. So yeah, Tyler, what do you have to say about that?
First, Kathleen mentioned the like needing to build muscle, and everyone we see needs to build muscle. Like I haven't, it's not a single woman or man has come across in our program that they have not needed to build muscle. There's actually one guy in the men's group right now who's just absolutely yoked and he probably doesn't need to build muscle, but I'm going to say he needs to build muscle to make myself feel better. But 99.9% of people. The other thing that comes to mind is Solomon's paradox, which is the idea that we give really bad advice for ourselves, but great advice to others. And this is the benefit of working with a coach. And if you are going to work with a coach, like why would you hire someone to help you through a process and then just doubt every single thing that they say? Like even if they're not perfect, which they're not, because we're all fundamentally flawed, you have to believe, or you should have done enough due diligence of work to have enough faith that they know more than you and have seen this experience, like people go through this experience multiple times to get you there in a smoother way. So obviously, like, you can push back, you should question your coach, but at the same time, you should also believe that like the ideas that I have every day and the inconsistency that I sometimes want to do should be smoothed out when I bounce it off a coach. And that's kind of what a good coach should be. Like we talk about this with our coaches, like it's just a mirror. And when I say I really want a chip wish, even though I'm at my calories, you look in the mirror and you're like, hey, Tyler, you don't really need the chip wish. This is not supportive of your goal. And then you close the freezer.
I think to summarize, like, I love y'all listeners, but many of you guys are program hopping, and we need to jump off that train and instead focus on consistency and choosing one thing for a period of time and giving it sufficient time to work. The body likes homeostasis, and that involves strength training. So, in an exercise program, you should not be starting a new program every week. That involves some sort of eating strategy, right? Some sort of foods. You shouldn't be high carb, low carb, zero fat, high fat, no protein, high protein. Like, no, stick with something. And then that also involves just like general day-to-day habits as well. And we need to give the body time to actually implement those consistently to actually see a change. So we need to develop a little bit more patience when it comes to just the time it takes for a program to actually work.
It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basically. It's like until you have done these foundations for a consistent enough period of time, you're literally stepping over dollars and like the big movers to pick up like pennies and stuff. And I look at the pennies being like the parasite cleanses, et cetera, because it's like, okay, if you truly had a parasite that was truly damaging your health that much, like you should be in the hospital being actively monitored by a doctor, going through actual parasite protocols and having your labs looked at, et cetera, because when you go through these protocols, it doesn't only affect the parasite, right? It affects everything systemically. And so, sure, like maybe this thing might like help you, but it always goes to the mechanistic argument of like, okay, did it help you because you actually had a parasite, or did it help you because of something else? But you've just confirmed that you had a parasite because it helped you, because people are saying this is for parasites, when it might not have been a parasite at all. It could have just been something else going on. And this thing has in some way impacted that something else, shifted symptoms. And so you think you've confirmed it's self-selection bias, like you've confirmed that bias, if you understand what I'm saying. So yeah, I think mechanisms are great, obviously, as a scientist, but I also like to loosely hold on to arguments as to why something is happening, because it is very possible that what I believe to be the why, it might not necessarily be the true why.
And that's Goddard's law too, right?
Right.
Which you introduced me to.
Yeah,
And it's great. And the idea is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
exactly.
So if you optimize for HRV because HRV increases longevity, at some point HRV is not going to be related to longevity. And that's kind of what we're seeing in the research right now, that HRV might not be as good of a, basically like HRV is correlated, like it's somewhat related to longevity, but increasing HRV for the sake of HRV doesn't seem to be improving longevity. It's not like a one-to-one relationship.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
all
my
the
HRV
time.
went up
Yeah,
during the cut.
yeah. All the time we see people's HRV, quote unquote, improve, go up in the cut, but it's because of the fact that they're going into a sympathetic response, not because of the fact that their like true HRV is improving. Now, I do think that we still have a little bit to kind of refine. Is the increase in cardio that we do during the cuts potentially have a benefit on that side of things? And so, as we continue to look at the cuts and the cut process, and having different cohorts experience, slightly different things to continue to refine our process over time, like we'll definitely look at that. But yeah, it's like you can, and it is a well-known thing that HRV can increase because it's a sympathetic state, not because of a quote unquote parasympathetic, like actual bettering of your health state. Now, not saying a cut is not like a positive or not a bettering your health, but like in the moment, it is definitely a stress state. And then it leads to a lower stress state in time because you lower your total body burden, etc. So,
HRV would be an example of how someone could actually be program hopping in a way that they don't even realize. Is they learn about something new, such as heart rate variability, HRV, and they learn from one influencer that the higher the HRV is, the better your health, the longer that you'll live. So then you get distracted from your normal day-to-day of hitting sufficient calories, getting sunlight, exercising, and instead you're like, oh, squirrel, HRV, I'm going to do whatever I can to raise HRV. And then everyone has limited time and you lose track of these other foundational habits and you just focus on HRV, when it's like we should have had the horse blinders on, and like certain metrics like that will take care of itself over time as we, as you said, Kathleen, focus on the Maslov hierarchy of needs, focusing on these foundational pillars that will move the needle forward the most. Okay. Tyler, do you want to move on to the next point of another reason why we see people fail in their fat loss and body recomposition goals?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is something I've been struggling with a lot. And I haven't really talked about it. I haven't really been on social media much because of this. And my beef with myself right now is like, I wish we had this like very special sauce in Transform that was like, we have solved fat loss, so we have solved X, Y, or Z problem, but we haven't. And I think the difference between most people and their goals is a bunch of small, seemingly insignificant changes that they don't want to acknowledge. Alex Honnold, the famous climber, came out with a cool video. I think he was on Diary of a CEO. And people like to write him off. He's the guy that just climbed the building. He's done some insane free climbing, great Netflix free solo. And he's like, people love to cite that my amygdala is turned off when I'm staring at these insane environments. But he's like, that's a bunch of BS, because I have been so acclimatized to these environments that, yeah, my fear response no longer turns on, but it's because I spent years climbing every day such that I feel like I'm in control in these environments. Whereas you, day-to-day person, listener, would of course feel like you're insane. And I have done a lot of pursuits, a lot of hobbies like snowboarding, and I've recently gotten into chess, and people just don't understand the gravity of work that has to go in to be successful in any domain. And a lot of times it's not significant, right? It's not like I just go up to a mountaintop and start climbing. It's like an hour of work here and there consistently over time. It's choosing the small ice cream. It's going for a walk in the morning. I will give an example. I went to a bachelor party last weekend and I went for a run the second day in, and everyone was like, dude, I can't believe you went for a run. Like, you're crazy. Well, one, I run a decent amount. So it's like, it's not that abnormal for me to go on a run on a Saturday. Two, instead of staying up till 5 a.m., I went to sleep a few hours earlier. So I wasn't that crazy underslept when I woke up at 9 a.m. And I probably had a few less drinks than everyone else. And that is the cumulative. If I had stayed up to 5 a.m., if I had as many drinks as everyone else, I probably wouldn't have got up and run. But those small, insignificant decisions add up to be somewhat significant outcomes when you draw them out long enough. And again, I wish we had this big, sexy thing to sell you all and say like Transform is the secret, but people believe that we do, and people believe that that's what they're missing. They're missing the secret sauce. And that is what's preventing you from achieving your goals. You're looking for the secret sauce. You're program hopping because you think you're missing something, and you're not missing anything. I promise you.
Okay, so you're saying you think that I get it. I get it. That could be the underlying reason why people program hop. Like if we were to assess behavior of someone and what's the reason someone is scrolling on Instagram looking for the answer, it's because they believe they're missing the secret sauce.
Yes, they think that this next supplement is going to get them there. It was, B1, B12, CoQ10, some of the other like longevity supplements that people are using now. I mean, it literally just jumps from one thing to the next because people think this is the thing I'm missing, when it's like, no, you're probably missing, something from all the slices of the pie, but just done together, moving forward together consistently enough to again raise, what was once your floor. Sorry, what was once your ceiling now becomes your floor. And so you're raising the floor over time. That's what we talk about. That's what Tyler especially talks about a lot in Transform, and that we want to get your floors closer to what your ceilings used to be. And then your ceilings are higher than that. So we're raising our floors over time.
I do need to clarify, Tyler, though, like Transform works.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, Transform definitely works.
But you have to do
And
this stuff is what I think he's saying. Because people come into Transform thinking, okay, I'm here, I'm in this ecosystem.
I clicked purchase.
Yeah, I'm in this microcosm that is Transform, and I'm going to get the result. And it's like, okay, but you're here, and now you have to actually implement the plan. And if you implement the plan, you will get the result. You can't just be here saying you're part. Who said it? It was on the 3DJM podcast. Alberto. He was like, people sign up to coaching programs nowadays because it's like the thing to do. It's like they're having the Prada bag and stuff like that. And so it's like become the thing to do. And so they sign up and they're like, okay, I'm now doing it. I'm now in this thing, and I'm going to get this result. And it's like, just because you sign up for something, like you still have to implement. And yes, I do agree, Ash, that I think that we've done a great job, and we continue to do a great job of making small refinements for the average, because again, we're working with a group of people. And so it'd be different if we were working one-on-one, but we're making small refinements to the program for the average to get the person that the average person that we're working with the best results possible. But you can't just be in Transform saying you're doing Transform. You actually have to put in the work. You actually have to do the things consistently every day. And that's not to scare someone off, because I do think that, we make sure that we focus on the 20% that drives the 80%. And so we focus on like, what is the minimum effective dose? What is the kind of like, I don't want to say like least you have to do, but like, yeah, what is the minimum necessary in order to get you closer to your goals? But like, you then have to implement that minimum and then continue that minimum.
So I'm making a complete joke here, but every Friday, us four come together and we do some hums and chants, and we send off the signals to everyone that joins Transform, and that creates the results. I'm just kidding.
You can't tell people about that.
I um I think I just want to point out that like collectively amongst all four of us, I can pretty much say with 100% confidence we have tried it all, right? And so through the Transform program, and I'm not saying that Transform is the only program out there. We've all tried these hacks and things. And so the Transform program, it's not anything special. Like we are just putting the horse blinders on for you and creating an organized system of the habits and the little things like Tyler was talking about. It takes time to develop these things. We put that together in a system or flow that you have to implement that will lead to success if you are consistent and you keep the horse blinders on. And so, like, we've done all the mistakes, we've done all these things, we've tried all these things, these little short term hacks, and we're trying to help people put the horse blinders on and focus on what actually matters and what actually moves the needle forward. But you still have to keep your own blinders on, stay focused, stay consistent for a period of time to actually see any sort of measurable change.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to undermine. I wasn't really talking about Transform. I was more so talking about myself. I think Transform is built like it's an awesome program. We've put a lot of work in to get people to where they need to be as far as like, if you think about identity as like being repeatedly, like the actions that you repeatedly do, we continue to improve and implement things that will help you get to that point as fast as possible. And it's awesome to see the progress, but it's very frustrating. And I feel, right now, I feel like insecure about sharing on social media because like everyone just wants the special sauce and like it just doesn't exist.
Right.
I see.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Well,
There's no
Tyler,
special sauce.
yeah, I mean, I think we need to look at this as like real behavior change, because we can tell people to stop looking for the special stop sauce and stop program hopping and stop scrolling through things on social media. But I know from myself, like I've had to talk this through in therapy, and it stems from a lack of trust with your body and a tendency to have anxiety and uncertainty and an uncomfortableness with uncertainty. And so when you can't sit with that, you end up seeking out other solutions constantly or looking for a new answer. So it's a lot easier said than done for us to just tell somebody to, trust the process. But I think it comes back to having to actually trust yourself, trust your body, that you can accomplish this goal, you can heal whatever the goal is. So it's a little bit deeper than like this problem can actually be a huge problem. And social media fuels it for people, because we have at the access of our fingertips thousands of different solutions to try out. And so if we lack that trust and we lack that safety and we're running on anxiety, we're going to just constantly seek that out. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Tyler, I feel you 100% though. Like I really am struggling to kind of see my place in social media right now. It's challenging because the mindset of everyone in the audience and influence, like people listening to content and absorbing content, right? They are just looking for the quickest thing, and you see other people promoting that, and it's like, how do I fit in when I don't sell anything sexy or flashy? I sell the boring, not sell, but I promote the boring things that no one cares about that actually move the needle
Yeah.
forward.
Well, even like at one point, because I'm like speaking to myself largely here, I remember like thinking the Ray Peat diet, and there is no Ray Peat diet, but like the Ray Peat diet was the thing. Like this was the special sauce. And now I think about it, I'm like, yeah, so we get a moderate amount of fat, a moderate amount of protein, and a relatively high amount of carbs. So like this is like the most balanced diet you could possibly look for. And then we kind of promote more vegetables than Ray may or may not have promoted.
I love
But
veg.
Yeah. So it's just like there was a point where like I worked for a supplement company and I was like, this is it. This is going to cure all of humanity. Like you need, like, why are you not eating your carrot salad? And now I'm just like, the other thing, and I agree, say there's no, like, we can't cure this. It takes like a lot of work and introspection as well. The other thing I just think people don't understand is like the amount of work, if you look at like the sum of the four of us that have put into working on our physiques, like building our diet, is somewhat incomprehensible to the average person. And I don't mean like you don't understand that. It's just like I think we have all appreciated, like, if you look back on your own journey, like how many lifts that you have gone through, and like I don't even know how many hours. I've probably spent 10,000 hours in the gym. I'm sure you guys are all there, and that's what makes it hard. I think that's also what, like, if you could actually quantify in your head, it's like talking to a child. Like they just physically cannot quantify because they've never done something like of that magnitude. If you could actually quantify it in your head, you'd be like, oh, it makes sense that they look like that.
Yeah, I
All the
think
wasted time on the stuff that I've done, though, it really makes me cringe a little bit. Ooh.
yeah. And I think that's what makes the structure transform so great is that, like you said, Ash, that like we've all basically wasted so much time on these like meaningless movers over the age over our time being alive. And so we've brought all of the things that have found work for us, and now many people working with them. And we continue to, again, to make this slight refinements. And I love the structure of transform is because it then allows you to, it's like the bumpers, like we always talk about, like when you're bowling, it allows you to kind of like bounce off of these bumpers, but like still ahead in the, in the direction that you're going. And then I also love the structure too, because with the things that we do track and the way that we focus on, like, you eat the foods that you objectively do well with, not this food list that we give you. Um, and yes, like that can be a little bit of a struggle at first because it comes down to like, okay, what do I actually objectively do well with? But within like, I don't know, I would say like the first 6 weeks, we start to get messages of like, my goodness, I'm actually finding food freedom for the first time. Oh my goodness, I'm actually finding, what do I objectively do well with? What is my intuition saying? I'm actually paying attention to my energy, satiety, and hunger cues. I'm actually figuring out what they are. I'm actually waking up in the morning hungry because, I started having breakfast and stopped eating, so much at nighttime, which just means that I'm not hungry in the morning and stuff. And so, and like by weighing your weight, by weighing yourself every single day and seeing those big fluctuations, you no longer step on the scale only when you feel puffy and like not so good about yourself, which we all have those days where we all feel like that, especially with cycling women. It tends to happen around ovulation or around your period or both, or at random times too throughout your cycle. But that's what is unique to you. And so you start to notice that and you're like, oh, okay, on these days, like I'm up 4 pounds, but that's okay because I know in 3 days I'm going to be back down again. And so I don't have to like, swing it to this magical restrictive diet. It's like, no, I just keep plugging along and eventually it comes back down again and we just keep going. Or it's like, you know that like fecal matter is actually a thing and glycogen and water. And so if you go out and have like a big meal, to celebrate or something like that the night before, like, you're going to be up like 3 pounds on the scale, but you just like need to have like a really good bowel movement basically, and it's going to come back down again. And that like lean body mass, like it's okay. It's not fat mass and stuff. And so I think that helps to provide a lot of freedom for people to see that and to really get to the point where they are starting to trust their intuition and not, well, X influencer said I can't have beans, but Y influencer saying this, and like just round and round we go. And it's like, no, there's probably some amount of like, instead of we keep talking about this, but like instead of swinging between the extremes, like usually the kind of closer to the middle path is usually where we wind up. And again, though, it just comes back to doing that. Like, because we can't, it's like we can bring you to the water, we can bring the horse to the water, but we can't make you drink. Like, you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like getting the lessons without scars sort of idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Sarah, what is the next thing that we have seen that holds people back from accomplishing their fat loss goals?
The next trend would be throwing it all away because of one bad meal or one bad day. And this is like a very emotionally charged response. And I think that it could stem also from being too harsh and too structured and too restrictive on yourself. Because if you lack the ability to be flexible and to roll with the punches, then when something does happen, it will come crashing down, meaning your goal, your ability to be consistent. And so I think that the tip related to this would be to learn how to be a little bit more fluid and flexible when it comes to achieving your goals. And for a good example would be um, being able to track your food and have an untracked meal so you can go out to eat with your friends and family versus being on a very strict and restrictive meal plan. So you have to miss out on those dinners, or when you finally give in to it and you go out to eat, you overeat because you've been restricting yourself, and then you basically have to start over the next day, or you feel like quitting your plan because you feel like you've just already ruined it, which is not true. Like one untracked meal, one meal off, one day off is never, ever going to be enough to ruin your progress if you've been consistent for days or weeks or months prior. So, the name of the game for this one is just being consistent over perfect and recognizing that one meal out or one day off of your plan, or even one workout that you miss, is never going to be enough to derail all of your progress. And you should just keep moving forward. Like I'll be an example myself. Um, I had a surgery a few weeks ago, and I haven't really been able to work out as much as I was doing before. And a lot of people would just say, F it. Like, I can't work out. So therefore, I'm going to eat like trash. I'm going to just go off the rails here because I can't do the one part of my plan when we're missing the like 50 other things that you could be doing to keep moving in the right direction. Like I could be walking, I could still be eating, within my macros. I could be eating more because my body needs to heal. So there's so many different things that we can do, even if we have to miss one of the variables within our plan. It doesn't mean we have to quit everything. So yeah, having that all or nothing, black or white mindset towards your goals is really not conductive. To actually achieving your goal. So,
Yeah,
do
I
you guys
think
have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I want to add
The
on what you said really fast about people slashing calories when they're sick or after an injury or surgery. We always get this question, and it's like, no, please don't. Like, the body needs so many resources. Your immune system requires so many resources that, like, you need to, as best as possible, like, obviously, let's hunger, satiety, energy, etc., like, help to dictate things, but as best as possible, like, you need to still be trying to eat and still trying to hit, the micronutrients, the macronutrients, all of that stuff. And so back to the actual topic though, I love to term this like the case of the Mondays. And you see this all throughout the diet industry where people, they go in on Monday and they like hit it hard and they're, in this like big calorie deficit, which they're not ready for because they're constantly doing this. So they have so much diet fatigue and stuff. And then that diet fatigue just gets worse and worse and worse throughout the week. And then we hit Friday or Saturday, basically the weekend, and it's just like decaf. It's like, forget it. I'm so hungry. I'm just going to go all out and I'll start again on Monday again. But what we like to talk about in Transform is like, don't miss twice. And so it's like, yeah, like sometimes you make the conscious decision that like, okay, I am go out to this restaurant and it's a special occasion and I'm going to have XYZ, but you make that conscious decision, not a reactive decision. But then you get right back on plan at the next meal or at least the next day, right? Like you get right back to things. And if possible, like if you know that you're going to go out that night and it's your birthday or whatever, then like the other two meals of the day, you kind of compensate for that. So you have like leaner protein and higher fiber foods for those other 2 days to kind of, or sorry, those other two meals to kind of balance that one meal that you are choosing to just enjoy and eat basically what you have chosen and stuff like that. The hard thing, and we've had a lot of aha moments with people in Transform, is they realized that they were making like every occasion a special occasion. And so it was like, instead of just like choosing like Christmas Eve dinner and like Christmas Day lunch and then like New Year's Eve dinner and like, I don't know, New Year's Eve lunch, it was like that entire 2 week span basically was like a special occasion every single day. And um, they've found and we found that like, again, being very conscious with that choice and being like, okay, yeah, I'm going to, a Michelin star restaurant that's going to serve me like 8 courses. Well, of course, I'm going to enjoy the ever last bit of that food and it's going to be amazing and basically just like art in your mouth, right? Um, but, but then and you make that choice versus like, okay, I'm going to, the restaurant that I always go to every single week. And and it's a tradition and that tradition is great. But hey, because it's a tradition, because we go every single week, like, and I'm currently actively working towards a specific goal right now. I'm not just kind of in a maintenance mode type thing. I am going to choose the best possible option on the menu, whether, it's the chicken and broccoli and potatoes, or like rice, like literally whatever it is. But you choose that versus just like, well, I'm just going to eat whatever because we're now here at the restaurant and stuff. So making that the conscious choice.
I think when it comes to like a practical takeaway for this point, it's important for people to realize that your progress is not made by one meal, one workout, one day, or even one week, right? And so having one bad meal is not going to derail you. You just got to get back on the horse, right? And don't let it lead to 10 bad meals in a row. Just simply have, oh, life happened. Life is complicated. There's no perfect. Get back on the horse and get back to the program the next day. You didn't lose your progress. You don't just gain fat from one bad meal. You gain fat from, oh, that led to a trail of bad meals over time.
Yeah,
And so I
especially.
think if we have that mindset, it's helpful for people to not the, well, I messed it up. I'm just going to forget it all now and instead just accept one bad thing and I'm going to get back at it tomorrow.
Especially with the acute positive metabolic adaptations that we see the body goes through, like you have to overeat like 3,500 to 7,000 calories in order to actually put on like a pound of fat after overeating. And the reason for that, so that's like on top of your base diets, right? So, and the reason for that is because we do have these acute upregulations of metabolism that happens, heat production, NEAT production, so movement production, like all of these things. So if you do that consistently, though, you're going to consistently put on weight over time. And that's the issue, not the like one off day and stuff. But then the issue is, Ash, and we see this, is that people then react. So they wake up the next morning and they feel waterlogged. They feel a little bit bloated because they have fecal matter going through their system. And they step on the scale and they're like up 5 pounds and they're like, oh my goodness. And then they crash diet basically, or they go right to the diet. And then we just keep swinging the pendulum. But, we just go right to the case of the Mondays again. And we're on our restricted diet, never have a chance to actually put on muscle mass. We're probably just losing muscle this entire time. Never really like getting enough micronutrients, all of that stuff. And then we hit the weekend again and it's just like blow up our plan all over again on the weekend. And then we start again on Monday and we just keep cycling this instead of, going through conscious phases and not being reactive to seeing, that 4 pound increase or whatever the next day, just like going right back to what we were doing. So Tyler, sorry, it's your turn.
Kathleen likes to say this all the time in the program. Don't miss twice, which I think is such a strong piece of advice. Like everyone's going to miss. Just don't let your first miss influence your second. The other thing I like to say is no losses, only lessons. So if you learn from the miss, it will make the next one better. And then I had a client yesterday I was talking to, and her sleep has been wrecked from daylight savings time. Like she's missed all of her workouts this week. And I was like, look, why don't we just take tomorrow off? It was Thursday. Is today Thursday? Yeah. So, it was Thursday yesterday. I was like, why don't we just take tomorrow off? We'll reset on Monday. She said, well, Friday hasn't happened yet. Like, let me just see if I can like get in the gym for tomorrow. I was like, that is such an awesome mindset. Like she had missed 3 out of 4 workouts this week. She was like, yeah, let me just try again tomorrow. And that's not easy. It's a very hard mindset to cultivate. But if you can cultivate that mindset, which comes with, work and effort over time, I think you'll be in such a great place.
Okay, moving on to the next thing that we see with challenges and things that can derail someone from actually making progress with their fat loss and body recomposition goals is trying new foods and new supplements when you are in a fat loss phase, right? When you are in the fat loss phase, we like to say, get in, get it done, get out. And you're going to see the best progress if you kind of stick with things that you objectively do well with. And it's important to understand that when you try new foods, try new supplements, that's going to lead to a different internal environment inside of you that can lead to changes in body weight. It can potentially impact metabolic rate. It can potentially impact your sleep. It can impact like how you function. And we don't really want to throw those variables in, especially during a fat loss phase, right? We want to stick with the things that we know that we're doing well with so that we can stay consistent. We won't get distracted. And so we've seen this quite a bit with Transform. People start adding in creatine. What were the other things? Like fish oil, thyroid. Like, don't add these things in while you're in the fat loss phase because we're trying to stay consistent with measuring weight loss trends on a week to week average. And those things are going to lead to bumps. That's going to make you upset. That's going to scare you. You're not going to be motivated to keep going because you're going to see changes in your weight and you're like, oh, this doesn't work. I'm done. I'm quitting. And so not adding in supplements, but that also means not adding in new foods. And that can be really hard for people because they say, oh, I'm a foodie. I like to try all these recipes and things like that. Well, I get it. Like I'm a foodie too, but let's before your fat loss phase, let's be a foodie and create some fun recipes and things using foods that you do well with. So then that way you can utilize those in the fat loss phase. So I programmed in like 3 to 4 days of meals before I started the fat loss phase that tasted amazing, foods I do well with, so that I never got bored and I could cycle between these different things. And I made my food fun because you don't have to be restrictive, but you also shouldn't be adding in foods that you are unsure of how you would tolerate while you are in this very intentional fat loss phase. So I think that just remembering when you're preparing for your fat loss phase, because right now, if you are not in a fat loss phase, you shouldn't start there. When you're in this, like, establishing your maintenance, finding foods you objectively do well with and prioritizing those is going to be super key because the more that you can stay consistent, the more you're going to stay motivated to do the things that you need to do in your fat loss phase, the better results you're going to see, which is what we all want at the end of the day.
Yeah, the creatine one is such a big one, and I know that researchers are continuing to come out and say that like, oh, we really don't see a weight gain signal with creatine. However, anecdotally, we always see it. So, like, I'm not really sure where. Yeah. Anyways, and it's not like people are drastically overeating, and that's the reason why they're starting to gain it, especially because the moment they come off of creatine and you allow the stores to come back down again, which can take, it can take a month, it can take 6 weeks. It kind of depends upon the person. But you do see the water drop off. You do see the weight come off. So again, I'm not really sure where the disconnect is coming from on the research side right now, but anecdotally, we definitely see it. But like so many people, they start creatine and it's like they don't I don't know. Supplements is such a weird thing to me because it's almost like again, people are not making a conscious decision. They're just like, "Ah, I see the supplements, people are talking about it, I'm just going to start it." Because when, we always ask like, "Well, did you start creatine? Like, did you start anything?" They're like, "Oh, yeah, I did." And it's like that would have been, like, really important information, like, because, again, we commonly see it, and again, too, I also understand that researchers are starting to say, like, "Oh, we don't see the water gain from this," and so that's maybe why people don't necessarily mention it and stuff, but, like I said, anecdotally, we continually see the water gain from the creatine, but, yeah, it will about, like, for most people, 3 to 5 pounds, they increase, and if you do that during a calorie deficit, you're going to be like, "Oh my goodness, this isn't working for me. I'm in a surplus. What's going on here? I'm eating, I'm supposed to be eating 1,500 calories. I was eating, 2,200 calories. Like, how in the world am I gaining weight?" And it's like, well, just because of the fact that you're putting on basically like water weight, essentially sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, essentially, and which there's arguments about if that's true hypertrophy. I understand that, but still, we'll just call it sarcoplasmic hypertrophy for now to define it. But you are then losing fat mass, and that's the biggest thing, is that, like, if you are seeing, the scale is not only telling you fat mass, it's telling you everything that's in your body. So again, it's telling you, glycogen and water, it's telling you bone mass, it's telling you just organ mass, it's telling you fecal matter, which is a big one that people just like completely forget. It's like, yes, of course, if you start fasting, you're going to lose a ton of weight once you like get everything out of your system because you just have no more like fecal matter going through you, which is a very normal thing. Like I wish, people didn't like shy away from talking about like bowel movements and stuff because it's like normal processes. We all do it, yeah. So looking at the scale as, as a indicator of change and helping us see change, but not the only change, because we see this all the time when people do go through the fat loss phase, that um, you see people have different patterns as to how they lose weight. Some people, they just like keep losing a little every single day and they just keep going down. Some people, they literally weigh the same exact for like days. And like it's like, oh my goodness, you like never see this, especially with women, but they're literally the same exact weight, like, 163 or something, 163.2 or something like that. And then boom, they like drop down and then it's like same weight. And some people, they're like going up and then they go down and then they're going up and then they go down. So like there's all different patterns. And so the scale is a great metric, and of course we use the scale as a great metric. But you also have to look at measurements and progress pictures, because progress pictures can tell you so much. And I almost wish that people use progress pictures more, because like even with progress pictures, you can see like when someone is about to get sick, you can see their body like starting to put on water and like building that inflammation and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, this person's probably about to get a cold, and then it's like 2 days later, oh yeah, I have a cold. But on the reverse with like weight loss, fat loss with progress pictures, like you can see like, oh yeah, okay, over time, like they're definitely losing fat, even if the scale is not necessarily showing it yet. Same thing again with measurements and stuff too. So yeah.
Kathleen, I think Kathleen wants to talk about fecal matter. She's brought it up 2 times now. So
It's
just
a
kidding.
normal thing. It's like people are like, "I'm bloated." It's like, "No, like you have food going through you. You just ate like 800 calories in your meal. Like of course you're going to see protrusion. Like that's, especially the leaner you get. Like it's a normal thing. I wish, yeah, I just wish people were
I love pooping. Like,
vicious.
you feel so good after pooping. I feel sorry for the
So,
influencers who say that they poop every 4 to 5 days and they normalize that.
now,
This is
What
but
would
I think
life be like?
th-
the
this is
the
not the
fecal
direction I
matter
thought this
though
podcast was going to take.
is it's relevant to this topic in particular because if you are bringing in new food that you don't do well with and then you end up constipated, that could be part of the issue because then you won't see the progress that you're making. I would say though that supplements are probably the bigger risk for most people, and that if you have robust digestion, you don't need to be super strict on yourself of only eating a specific uh, list of foods. If you're somebody who has historically never had issue with food, I don't think it's as relevant for you. But the creatine is definitely the biggest one related to what we see in Transform.
Yeah. But
Absolutely. And really quickly, Kathleen, also, um, for people who also don't see progress in the progress photos, maybe they're just really hard on themselves. I personally like looking at how your clothes fits. Because even if the scale is going up and down too, like you're normally if you are losing mass, like your pants will start to fit a little looser, or just something will fit looser that maybe you're not looking at that in your photo, or obviously your scale may not be showing that because you could be putting on water or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
So
With
clothes fitting is my favorite.
with the pants, so if you have visceral fat, that's going to be one of the first things to leave, and so you will start to notice that your waist of your pants should be fitting a little bit looser. But in general, most people tend to lose top to bottom, which can be really frustrating. And so, like looking at your shirts can be like a really, once the visceral fat is pretty much gone, looking at your shirts can be like the next thing, as like, okay, yes, I'm probably losing, and then eventually we get to the lower body, which I know is frustrating, but it's kind of like you just have to keep going. It's like, it's why always when women are talking about getting stage lean and stuff, like they'll have like major ab veins and stuff like that, but still have, a little bit of like cellulite and stuff on their glutes and stuff. And then kind of vice versa for men a little bit, where men, it's harder for them to get that lower ab fat off. They have to go to like really, really low body fat percentage for that. But their glutes will have, veins and striations and stuff like that. So I think that's also an important thing to remember too, is that just because you're not necessarily, especially as women, just because you're not necessarily seeing as much of a change in your lower body doesn't mean a change is not happening. It's just the body, based off of the receptors, et cetera, it's a little bit more selective about where it's pulling its fat stores from during a deficit. So
yeah, Just to add a couple points to Sarah's point about like adding in foods, if the verbiage adding in foods is in your repertoire, like you're probably something like all of us, you've probably someone that has been restrictive before. So when you add in something new, it's going to affect you in a way that like your normal foods aren't. So just kind of expect that. It doesn't mean you don't objectively do well with it. It just means like subjectively you don't do well with it right now because it's new. And so that's just something to
Yeah.
be watch out for and probably not introduce it during the cut because you're already introducing one new variable. And then to what Ashley said, like, I think it's important to recognize like there are contraindicative goals. That was a mouthful. Uh, where it's like, look, my goal of trying every chipwich in Canada is not going to be conducive to the cut, right? Because one, I'm trying to, or like more literally, all of us have at least at some points tried to increase our calories as much as possible. That is exactly the opposite of what we're doing in the cut. So there's sometimes we take a short-term break from eating all of these delicate TikTok desserts and foods in exchange for eating more consistently, but that's a means to an end to get to where we want to look physique wise. And then we go back to the TikTok dinners and all that stuff.
That's why I think it's really important that someone defines what their goal is and what their current phase of life is in order to support that goal. Because, for example, when I am pregnant, my goal is not to do a cut, right? When I am postpartum, my goal is not to do a cut, it's to support breastfeeding, right? And so, but being okay with that because that's the phase of life I'm in at that current point. And so, sure, in my like body composition goals, like maybe I am kind of standing still or maybe taking the smallest steps forward because I'm still lifting and stuff like that. And so you have the natural recomp that comes with lifting, but I'm not like purposely, lowering my calories in order to put myself in a purposeful deficit in order to lose weight. And so from like a body composition side of things, like it's going to be a little bit slower and that's okay, but that's because that's the phase of the life I'm in and the phase of life that I choose. And so like when you come in to transform it, my view is like you should be coming in with like the view of, okay, for the next 24 weeks or so, this is my goal, this is my phase of life, this is what I'm focused on. And I'm going to try to maximally put forth the effort in that thing. And of course, things come up, we've had deaths in the family and people have to go to the hospital, not in Transform, but like family members have to go to the hospital. And so of course, and like the crazy winter that you all just had and stuff like that. Sorry, not to laugh. But things come up and stuff. And so you do have to pivot a little bit. And we, that's why the coaches are here in Transform is to help you like pivot and to make those adaptations when needed. But the like I want people to come into Transform with like the mindset of, okay, this is my focus for the next 24 weeks. This is what I'm giving myself. And some people come into Transform to not do the cut. And we are working to build like a maintenance group and stuff so that you can come in and like not do the cut and just focus on working on building up your calories and macros and then eventually micronutrients, get some really solid, lifting and training in and stuff like that. But and that's great. But they consciously chose that as their current focus right now. They consciously came in and said, "Okay, I'm not going to do the cut. I'm just going to focus on these things." And because that's the phase of life I'm in, and I need to look at that as progress, even though I might not necessarily be seeing the weight on the scale go down. Like my relationship to gravity on Earth is not, is not changing basically. And so I wish people were more conscious about their decisions. It again goes back to creatine where people just like kind of haphazardly start creatine without any kind of like, this is what I'm trying to get out of it. This is the experiment that I'm trying to run, or this is the thing that I'm trying to answer or leverage or, any of those like actions basically. But yeah, bringing things into the realm of, conscious competence and then eventually unconscious competence instead of just like unconscious incompetence and then like unconscious competence, basically. So like working our way, sorry, conscious incompetence. So like working our way through those levels versus, oh, this is just the next thing, like, kind of like we were talking about at the beginning, where it's like, this is just the next thing. I'm just going to join like just because. It's like, no, like you should join because you're at the stage of your life where, like, yes, you do want to focus on these things for the next, again, like 24 weeks. And again, things come up and stuff. And so we always help you with those things that come up and help you pivot and stuff. But it shouldn't be like I don't want people to join if they're like not at that stage, right? Because then you're just paying us money for no reason. Like you're not getting anything out of it. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think so. My recent experience, I just went through the Transform Fat Loss program. My cut was 5 weeks. Typically, we take people through a 6 to 8 week cut, but I didn't need to lose as much weight. So this was a little bit shorter period. But that was my focus, right? Like I put fancy recipes, I put supplement experiments on pause because my focus was fat loss. I did the things, I accomplished the result, and now I'm transitioning out of the fat loss phase. And now I can have other goals. And it's so nice, right? So the more that we are fine tuned with our goal and realize that life varies, just like there's seasons in nature, it's okay to have different goals with each season. But let's be clear and honest with ourselves for what's most important right now for you. And once you make that decision, like let's stick with it and then realize that later in the year, you can do that other goal. And I think that that's a hard thing to do because we're all surrounded by all these things on social media. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. But if we kind of more segmented them, we'd be able to accomplish more and stop spinning our wheels. So if you're going to join Transform, if you're going to join some other program, like let that be your focus and realize that, hey, maybe, climbing Mount Everest or running a marathon, like that can be a future goal down the line. But right now, let's make this the focus and you'll be able to move the needle forward. You can check that off. You'll be at a better stage in life and then you can open the door to the next thing. And that's just a beautiful way to go through life where you're not trying to do 900 things at the same time and actually move backwards because you're not putting enough effort into the thing that you actually want to prioritize.
That's why I love the get in, get out approach that we take because then it's like you get in, you accomplish your goal or as close to your goal as possible, and then you get out and now you build back up again, and then you put things kind of like on the back burner at maintenance, and so now you have the energy and things to go do other things, go do other focus. That's why, like, I know that again there's a lot of arguments in the like training world right now about like periodization and like, do you have focus blocks and stuff, or can you do everything together? And depending upon your goal, like I definitely think that you can do everything together. Again, like the rising tide lifts all boats type thing. But I also think that with that rising tide lifts all boats, it is helpful to have specific, like I'm focused on this right now. And you do that and then you switch to the next thing, you switch to the next thing. And then once you like, and you still have everything else on the back burner. And so you're still, the rising tide is still lifting all boats and still, maintaining. But then you get even better or a little bit more better at this thing, which then brings your tide up even more. And so you keep focusing on those things versus, back to the idea of like program hopping and like trying to get everything done at once.
It's been a whole almost 58 minutes, and I haven't dropped a single Hormozy quote. I know Sarah's been missing it. So, I love to define patience as knowing what to do in the meantime, and I think that's kind of encompasses what you all just said. Like, just because Kathleen was pregnant or breastfeeding doesn't mean she didn't still have fat loss goals. They just had to be put on the back burner. And what she was talking about with the conscious competence and unconscious competence is like, look, you might not be like, you might go through the cut phase and you still want to run a marathon down the line, but these next 6 weeks, the focus, the unifying, and there's not always a unifying, like a single organizational factor, or I forget what the word is, something like where you organize your life around. But you have like different things going on in the background. You're still like counting your calories. You're still getting your steps in. You don't just quit your job to do the fat loss phase because you have that on the back burner. But you're probably not taking on a bunch of new projects at work, hopefully, when you're doing this fat loss phase. So there are just different prioritizations with the fat loss being the number one at this point in time.
And I also think understanding that once you accomplish one goal, you may not know where your health is going to be at that point. So we see many people, liver detox, mold detox. I need to take a stool microbiome test because my gut health is all messed up. But I also want to lose fat. Those are all different things. But if you focus on your metabolism and fat loss, you may be very surprised with the state of your health at the end of that fat loss phase. Your gut microbiome can change in 3 days, right? Depending on what you eat, your energetic state. And so if we get focused on like, rising tide lifts all boats, metabolism, base fundamental habits, and being consistent with those, you would be very surprised with how your joints feel after a certain period of time, where your gut health is at, what foods you can actually tolerate in 6, 8, 10, 12, 24 weeks because your base metabolic rate improved, which gave more energy to your digestive tract, and your digestive tract can now have a better lining. It can move food quicker through you. And so I think keeping an open mind with, if I stay specific with a specific goal, once I reach that goal, I may have opened up other doors that I wasn't like aware of, but that can only really happen if you stay focused and actually commit and accomplish that goal. And so I think that that's a really freeing mindset, because then you won't get as distracted along the way. And then also you may have checked off a few boxes that you didn't even know you were doing at the same time. Okay. I do have one more tip for people, and you guys can comment on this. So another thing that we see that holds people back from accomplishing their fat loss goals, and we've touched on it a little bit throughout this podcast, is that people weigh themselves one time a week or one time a month. And you guys need to understand that we are humans. We are not robots. We are not machines. Weight fluctuations are very natural. And so in Transform, we look at week to week trends, but you can't get a good week trend with one weigh in. We need like 5 to 7 days of weights, and then we can take the average and look at the average week to week. And that's going to give us the best picture of, are we actually moving forward, or are we getting distracted with, hey, I went out to eat last night and there was a lot more sodium in that meal, and that led to 3 pounds of water retention. And so if you can stick with weighing yourself at the same time as frequently as you can day to day, if your goal is weight loss and body recomposition, that's going to give you a much better picture of if you're actually moving the needle forward, rather than this yo-yo cycle of freaking out like, oh my gosh, I stepped on the scale and I'm 5 pounds up from the one time that I weighed myself last week. We need to remain calm and recognize that day-to-day fluctuations are completely normal. Like if you guys were to see my chart, it was like up, down, up, down, up, down. But the general trend was like this, right? It was up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. But then the average went down during the fat loss phase. And if I would have just weighed myself one time a week, and freaked out after I saw a 4-pound bump in the scale, then I would have been like, screw it, I'm fasting today. I'm not eating at all. I'm going to go extra hard on my workouts. Then that got me super hungry. I didn't sleep well. And then I binged the next day. And then, oh, I'm done. I lost all of I'm just going to throw it all away. Right. And so it keeps us balanced with understanding that we're humans. Weight fluctuations are normal. And let's look at the week to week trends to make sure we're heading in the right direction. Okay.
Yeah. And we are launching our next round of Transform this come few weeks in April 6th. It starts the next round, correct? Cool. And basically we packaged all of these, what I will call skills into a 6-month program. So all of the habits, all of the fallouts that we are all speaking from personal experience, because we've done them multiple times, we're going to help you navigate around the treacherous waters as we have the rising tide lift all boats, and hopefully get you to where you want to be as fast and smoothly as possible with as little friction as possible.
Link in the description below to learn more about Transform and join the early access list so that you know right away when signups open up, because we do keep access limited, because it is a one-on-one nutrition guidance within a group supportive, like accountability community. And so you do get personalized one-on-one nutrition macros, and then everyone is on a similar workout program. We're all working together towards the same goal. And so it's a super great accountability and support system, which I think is an underrated feature of any sort of health changes. Like, we are humans, we're meant to be in a community. So that's one really great part about Transform. It's like a hybrid And so more details in the description below, and we'd love to have you join us.
Really fast. That's honestly why everyone always messages me and says like, "You guys share everything for free. Like it's amazing. Like no one else does that." And it's like that's honestly the reason why we don't gatekeep and why we share everything because first of all, I do believe that you can do this by yourself, but what really makes the program is the coaching and the again, like if there are slight things that need to be adjusted for you specifically and your situation, what's going on and stuff, that's what makes the program. Because again, I mean, you can do all these things by yourself. Like they're really straightforward. You just have to keep showing up and doing them. But a lot of people get way better results with coaching, with the accountability, with those slight tweaks and stuff because of that. And so, if you're someone that you find that that's helpful, like please join us. But again, we don't have any special magic fairy pixie dust to sprinkle over you. Like, we are going to ask you to to weigh your food, to measure them in grams, especially if you want to be if you want to see the maximum results, like it is really important to try to measure everything in grams and not just to go off of serving sizes. And again, like I understand that seems highly pedantic and like why should I have to do this and stuff. But at the end of the day, like this is going to be, your chosen focus for the next 24 weeks. And then from there, you can move away from measuring your food. And we talk about towards the end of Transform how to do that, how to go back to now you actually know your hunger, satiety, and energy cues. And so you can actually do true mindful eating because it's like before that, you don't even know yourself. You don't even know those cues because you've overridden them for so long. And so, we talk, we help you get to that point and stuff. So if you yeah, and I also want to say like we're not going to expect you to lift 5 days per week. Most of the people in Transform lift twice a week and do one cardio session a week and like 8,000 steps a day and stuff like that. And yes, the steps go up and yes, the cardio does go up during the fat loss phase, but then they go back down again. So and it's only 6 weeks and then we're still in the fat loss phase as we're reversing, but so about 8 weeks. But it does come back down again. It's not some crazy, like, boot camp type thing.
It's less than what people think is needed for health and wellness, but it's more of the things that actually matter.
Mhm. Kathleen, in addition to the coaching, I feel like the community is really valuable too. And I feel like the community can protect against a lot of what we talked about today, as far as program hopping, um, wanting to throw away all your progress because you have a group of people who's also working towards the same goal. And if you actually utilize that community, it provides a buffer against a lot of that noise because you have all of these women and men who are cheering you on and who are probably also going through the same struggles. So you can converse with them and kind of, even if you are having a moment where you want to program hop or you want to drop ship or whatever you're doing, you can express it there. And I think that's really important to have an open forum and an open community where you feel comfortable doing that. And the community in Transform, once we get going, it gets really bopping. So definitely a value add of this program.
Yeah, definitely. And, again, we continue to find that the more you do of the program, the more you're going to get out of it. So if you can make the office hours, if you can make the Q&As, if you actually join in the forum and you do the Flex Fridays and even like say happy birthday to the happy birthday posts and stuff, like the more you are part of the program, the more you get out of it. So yeah, so I guess that's my challenge for people is like don't just sign up for something just because it seems cool or just because it's like the Prada bag, it's like the next thing. It's like sign up for it because like, again, you've made the conscious decision that this is what you want to focus on right now. And do your best to put yourself fully into it. And again, it doesn't have to be transform. It could be like you want to learn how to do horseback ride or like whatever, like literally whatever it is. But like
Play chess
yeah.
like Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah, like but do your best for at least the next, 6 months or however long the thing lasts for to like actually do the thing and like decide like do I actually like this thing? Is this thing actually an objective benefit or whatever for me versus like oh, this seems to be what everyone else is doing or this seems cool or I'm like really motivated in the moment and so I just like, jump on and stuff, and then it's like, "Oh, I really didn't wanna do this and stuff." So yeah, just please take your time to, like Tyler said, to do your due diligence to say, like, "Is this actually for me? Do I actually want to, focus on this and stuff?" And then, when you come in, like, excited and like ready to go, and that doesn't mean the excitement is always going to last forever, and that's okay. Like, we almost want you to get to the point where you're like bored with transform, because then it's like, okay, yes, like these things are moving to unconscious competence, and it's like now you just do them. They're just who you are. They're part of your identity, and now you can like go on and like do other things outside of this realm. So
It's a great way to wrap it up.
Great way to wrap it up. All right. Thanks, guys. Until next time, stay rooted in resilience. And again, link for transform info in the description below.